If you are deliberately trying to create a future that feels safe, you will willfully ignore the future that is likely.
Welcome, champions, to another episode of Champion Reads, the book club where we delve into the best books, discussing the principles behind those books and how the application of those principles can change our lives. We are sponsored by Champion Circle, the networking organization built upon the foundation of the mastermind methodology, where we strive to, again, bring in the best principles, the best applications to accelerate our lives. You can find out more about Champion Circle at mychampionscircle.com or on your favorite social media and podcast channels with the symbol at mychampionscircle. Today, we're joined by our executive producer and all-around wonderful guy, Mr. William Blake, dyslexic achievement coach. I'm Ian Sturmer, author, coach, and entrepreneur as well. Today, we are focusing on a new book for the month, The Linchpin, Are You Indispensable? By Seth Godin. The Linchpin, this is my first time reading this book, so it's kind of a new one for me. I love that idea. Are you indispensable? Are the things you're doing not only important, I was about to say just important, but are they so important to your organization that you are needed? Or are you just another cog in the machine that can be replaced by any other cog? That whole idea of a cog in the machine has really ruled the workplace and our philosophy of life for the last 150 years, especially since Henry Ford and the interchangeable parts and assembly line that he kind of perfected with the Model T Ford. At that point, anyone could step in and do the job as good as the person before them and as good as the person after them. And that increased productivity, it changed the world. And it was probably a very needed thing at that time. But now we transitioned from the industrial age into the information age, where a lot of this cog in the machine is being outsourced, is being replaced now with AI. The jobs that we thought were always going to be safe, computers are able to do for us even better than robots replaced the assembly lines. So the question Seth Godin asks us is, are you indispensable? Are you going into your organization to make you so unique, so valuable, that you as an individual make a difference and are needed in that organization? So with that introduction, I'm going to turn to somebody who is absolutely indispensable in the Champion Circle and Champion Reads organizations, Mr. Blake. What is indispensable?
Well, you said irreplaceable. So obviously I have to turn it back to you because you are irreplaceable.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely, man. I love that we can just have a casual conversation. That's what this is about. Casual conversation with good friends, good individuals, just talking about the principles that we apply to our own lives, as well as principles that we hopefully can, from the stuff that we've done, help other people to learn them as well. Indispensable. I remember when I was working at Walmart, and it's, when you're indispensable. You know when you are someone who is, it's very hard for them to replace. And especially at Walmart, where most people who are there are either teenagers or college students who are trying to get by, or individuals who have been there for a while looking for a paycheck. It's very easy to feel like you are just a cog in the machine, right? That you're just another individual. But I remember that when I was working at Walmart, I was working at the produce section, all the fruits and veggies and all the other wonderful, and also the meat department and such. And I remember I was talking with my boss, and him and I got along really well. And he asked me this question that was very interesting. He said, Willie, how do you do so much in so little time? And I had to sit there and think about it. And I'm like, I don't think I do so much in so little time. But as he went on to describe it a little more, he was saying that I did the work of at least two individuals, being able to put out stuff on the floor, being able to do zoning, which is making it all look pretty, and being able to put stuff in the back for storage to where it's not left out and gets spoiled and rotten. And as I thought more about it, I just said, I don't know. That's just who I am. And it really broke down into several different things. It was like taking initiative, um, emotional labor. So many people can do physical labor, but like emotional labor would include things of solving problems, connecting with others, things that and being creative, those things that don't initially come with a job, but that you can start working on. Embracing risk and failure, being super generous with what you're doing, like being adaptable, flexible, unique, your own personal touch, like all these different things to help out. And as my boss kept talking to me about it, he said, Willie, basically, you could take my job if you wanted to. And I can't say that about most people who are working under me because they just are doing their job. But you're different because you do your job, but then you also learn the job that I'm doing, which is the ordering of the food, which is being able to manage the department. If my boss isn't there, like everyone turns to me as the leader and being like, what's going on? The organization of everything, where everything goes, how to scan it and label it, and like all these different things he started to tell me. And it was a very humbling moment. I'm like, oh, well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. But it really went to show that what it doesn't mean to be indispensable. It's doing your job, but then doing more than your job. And I think that more part is probably the most crucial part of it all, is that when you do more, then you can become indispensable.
I like that. And yeah, just there's doing your job well, and there's doing more than your job. Um, my wife, who's my hero for a lot of these kind of things when we talk about being indispensable and being more than needed. When we were first married, we actually both worked in the same hotel, and she worked in the gift shop. And it was a really slow job. It's not a lot of things going on in there. So she was bored. So while she was bored, she would get a duster and walk through the gift shop, dusting everything so that it all looked better. She took the initiative to do more than what was needed, more than what she had to do for that job. Now, as good as that is, I'm going to say that made her a good employee, taking on a little more initiative. But it didn't necessarily make her indispensable because anybody could have done that. And like you said, being indispensable is expanding beyond your job, learning more, knowing more, expanding your skill set. So I'm going to jump to the next example of my wife. So after we graduated school, we moved out to San Francisco. She got her job as a temporary secretary in a company. But she didn't want to just learn what to do. She didn't want to just do whatever assignment was handed to her. She needed to know the story behind it, why it was done a certain way, so she could understand the whole process. She was fairly quickly brought on as a full-time secretary to the paralegal in the company. After a little while, it's probably a couple of years, the paralegal ended up going out on a sick leave for a little bit, and they just asked her to fill in for him instead of bringing in a temp to fill his position. They knew that she had made herself indispensable. She had learned beyond her job, learned her boss's job, so that actually when he came off of sick leave, they kind of liked her and they moved him to a different department so he could have a new job. and they kept her. So to me, that's indispensable. She took the time to learn her job really well first. And then she expanded that. So she understood the reasons behind why a certain form was done a certain way, why a certain jurisdiction needed Form B instead of Form A. And knowing these kind of things, she became the go-to person where other people in her department would ask her, oh, if we're doing something in Ireland, do we need to have this form? I don't know her job well enough to give you better examples. Sorry. um, but she became indispensable with that. And for her, that was the gaining of knowledge beyond what her job required so that she could be the linchpin, the indispensable person in her organization. So I'm going to say that being indispensable does not necessarily mean being really good at your job. It means expanding what you do beyond your job. Just as you were saying with your experience with Walmart, to go beyond your own job. So
It's so crucial. You made me think because you mentioned that if you're indispensable, it doesn't mean you're good at your job, but you take more than you're on. That made me think of being indispensable is a cause and effect type thing of when you put time into knowing your job and then doing more, that is the cause and effect of then being indispensable. And then by doing more, then you start getting better because as you do more and you put the quantity in it, obviously, as you're getting the quantity of stuff, the quality is going to be coming with it. As Alex Hormozy says, as you put in the reps, you're going to get better. It's just without a doubt what's going to happen. And so as you put in that quantity and put in the quality, then you become that indispensable. Someone who you're just like, I would rather let everyone else in the department go and keep this individual because this individual can keep up the department with or without these other individuals. And that might be hard for some people to hear, but it's the truth. We all know that there's 20 that in the workplace, and I've had this in several workplaces where 20% of the individuals get 80% of the results. So you can knock out 80% of the individuals in there and still get 80% of the results. So for the listeners who are listening, I don't want to jump into practical stuff too early because we have a great discussion going on. But if you are someone, let me phrase it this way. We all know someone in whatever spot we are in life. Let's just jump into a co-working space. We all know in our department who is the best one there. The one who is able to do basically everything, able to get things done quicker and get more results from it. We all know that individual. If me as someone who comes into the company wants to go in and let's say it's a sales job, I come in and I'm looking at all the salespeople. I'm not going to want to do what everyone else does. I'm going to want to do what that 1% of individual does who makes the most sales, who hits the top of the chart every single month. I'm going to want to copy what they do because they're doing stuff that I don't know yet that I need to learn from in order to get that 1%. So as you go on in your departments and as you go on in your life and different stuff, if the people who you are looking at and watching, if they don't have the results that you have, stop learning from them. Because if they don't have the results, they might not be doing the right things. And I'll go out on the limb there and say they are not doing the right things. But what you should do is go for the individual who has the life that you want. And if that's to be the linchpin in your company and be indispensable, you want to look for those individuals and say, what are they doing that most people are not? And then start doing those things. Because as you do those things, then you're going to, as we talked about, you're going to be doing your job. You're going to be doing more than your job, and that quantity is going to improve and the quality is going to improve. And then you'll become the linchpin of the company you work for.
I love that. And there's a word you use several times there, learn. And it kind of hit me that if we want to be the linchpin, it's not about being the best at our job. The fastest typist in a 1960s or 70s secretarial pool is out of a job because technology has changed. And everyone can type to some degree. And now we don't even need to type much with voice transcribing and some of the AI tools we have out there. So continually learning and adapting to things, I think, is part of it. And Einstein is a great example. Um, Einstein spent the first half of his life convincing people of the reality of his visions and his mathematical formulas, which were so revolutionary that people just struggled to accept the change from Newtonian physics up to Einsteinian physics. But the last part of his life, he spent arguing against the next change into quantum physics because he stopped to a point, and this is not, I never want to say Einstein wasn't smart, but if we simplify this example, he stopped progressing to the next level of quantum physics and argued against that, keeping his own formulas that he had developed earlier and not seeing the progression of that. I think we do that in our lives a lot as well. We learn and we grow and we hit a point where we're good and we stop there because we're good. And we don't continue to grow and seek beyond there. And that linchpin is going to be the one that not only can look beyond where we are today, but tomorrow, they're also going to look beyond where we are tomorrow. And the day after that, they're going to look beyond that and continually be growing and finding new solutions, finding new reasons to be important. So that continual learning and growing, I think, is, to me, that's the centerpiece of what it means to be indispensable. Now, probably in a future one, we're going to talk about the artistic side of it, because that's a big part of this book as well. So a little spoiler alert or foreshadowing there for you. But the education side, and that's what we're doing here in this this podcast. And in the green room before, I was talking with William about that, how we read so many books, but then they overlap some, but each one expands a little bit what we've read in another book before and gives us just a little more perspective, going out a different direction and gradually growing that. And as long as we're still learning and we're still looking for new solutions and new ideas, we're going to be that linchpin. We're not going to be the one who settles into the routine that's comfortable today. But what is going to make the routine better tomorrow and the day after? And then people turn to us as the experts.
It's one thing you said got me, because I saw it on a video this morning, where if you are going out and doing it, that you get good at it, but then you get comfortable with it. And what this video said, and what the individual, I wish I remember their name, said in this video, was sometimes we get comfortably numb. That if I were to ask you the question that, would you rather go a mile and walk, or if you had to go 2 or more miles, drive a car? Most people would go the extra mile or plus to drive a car, because paradoxically, you'll be getting there faster than if you were to simply walk. And what he was illustrating was that sometimes in our life we get comfortably numb with where we're at, to where if we're at a job, yeah, our boss is bad, but it's manageable. Like, my weight isn't affecting my energy too much, so I can just do things here or there. Financially, we're all right. Like, we're making some money, but it would be nice to have more and stuff. Like, we make these excuses of we are comfortable where we're at, so we don't take any more action. And a lot of times it would be better for the individual to be in a worse situation, because if they're in a worse situation, then they will actually take some action. They will actually go out and do something. But because we put ourselves in this comfortable good zone, we sit on poor results of where we're just sitting there comfortably. And it was such an amazing concept of sometimes we need to make our situation worse in order to get it better. Kind of like a pendulum that swings back and forth. A lot of us are just sitting down there and not moving. Sometimes we need to make it worse to then finally swing to the other side and be great in our life. Some people have those abilities to uh what's it called? Cut cold turkey, or being able to do things right off the what do you call it? Right off the gun, right off the shot. But
Right
for
off the
most
bat.
of us, yeah, absolutely. But for most of us, we probably need to get in a worse situation, or feel something worse in order to get the motivation and stuff we need to get better results.
Yeah. I forget who it was that came up with this saying that I use and hear all the time: good is the enemy of great.
Mm.
If things are good enough, we sit there and we're happy with that. Um, but it's not until there has to be a motivation. Um, and if I remember the quote, when there's the desire to change has to be greater than the discomfort of staying where you are. Uh, if you're comfortable enough where you are, there's no desire to change. If the Puritans hadn't experienced religious discrimination in England, they would not have gotten on boats and traveled to the Americas and helped, for good or bad in today's world, the colonization of the Americas. Uh, it was because there was a problem. If Columbus hadn't discovered or hadn't desired to earn money with the spice trade with India, he would not have desired to undertake that trip to America, or to the east and discovered America. And if you go back beyond that, if the hunter-gatherers throughout Siberia hadn't desired more food, they wouldn't have trekked across the Bering Strait land bridge and come into Americas and populated the Americas in our prehistory. There's got to be a desire in there for something more than you have. And as I started at the beginning, the whole Industrial Revolution was about filling a cog. Um, the American dream was you get a job at the GM factory and you work there for 40 years, and then you get a gold watch, and then you buy a travel trailer and go down to Florida in the wintertime. That was the American dream. You get a little house with a little white picket fence. Um, you come home after work and watch TV and go to a ball game on Saturday. And there's nothing wrong with that life. There's no reason that people should not want that life or be happy with that life. But if you compare the world today to what it was then, the opportunities out there, if you want it, there are so many more opportunities. There's so many ways to have more than that. And the other side is because everyone can turn the screw clockwise. If that's the righty tighty. Okay. I struggle with that. Almost everyone can
I
turn
do too.
a screw right to the right or clockwise. It's replaceable, and it's been replaced by machines, and it's been outsourced to areas of the world where they don't have the education opportunities we have today. So the people are taking those jobs and doing those just as good as we did here. We've been replaced because we haven't gone beyond there. We haven't made ourselves irreplaceable or indispensable. I'm going to use those. If you're not irreplaceable, you will be replaced, because there's always somebody cheaper, somebody more convenient, some easier way to do it if we don't make ourselves indispensable. And that's really the whole point of this book. You're either a cog in the machine, or you are indispensable in making sure that machine runs the way it needs to.
There's a lot of It reminds me of the talk about AI. A lot of people don't like AI because it's going to replace them in what they're doing. It's like, no, AI is going to replace the jobs of which robots and AI can do. But if you're still sitting in a situation after the years that you have worked in a company to where you're doing the job that you that you've done since day one and you haven't grown since then, yeah, of course AI is going to come in and replace you. But if you are able to connect with individuals, if you're able to be creative, if you come up with ideas that are innovative for the company, that's not replaceable. Sure, robots can and AI can be able to come up with ideas, but to be able to be so specific with the area, to be able to connect with people on an emotional level, to be able to be creative and be able to share those insights and be innovative, like those are things AI cannot replace. I don't know about you, but AI only does and robots, they only do what you tell them to do. That's their parameters. They can't do something you don't tell them to do. So if you're being innovative and you're doing things of which you are thinking for yourself and growing up on, well, shoot, then you are basically in that irreplaceable spot. And as I wrap up my thoughts, I'd love to share something that Tony Robbins has shared, which is you have results. Well, we'll results over here, and you have the actions that you take over here. So if you are bad at taking action, then you are going to get bad results. If you are poor at taking action, most people think that you will get poor results, but you actually get bad results. If you are good at something, we'll just go with okay at something, then you get poor results. If you are good at something, you get okay results, right? Do you see like the angle that goes there? If you are great at something, you're going to get good results. But then Tony Robbins brings in this word, and I love it because this word, the way of which you go past great to be what we've been talking about, and Seth Godin's been talking about with being irreplaceable. If you are taking outstanding action, going above and beyond, that's where you get the great results. And the crazy thing is that each of these things, from bad to poor to okay to good to great, all of them just are like the stepping stones. But from great to outstanding, a lot of people think it's such this massive gap. There's no way that I can do it. When really, it might just be one or two actions, one or two things that you need to change to go from great to outstanding. But that little that difference between first and second place is the difference between having good results and having great and outstanding results. I love how Tony Robbins puts that out because it's it's not totally out there to be the best in what you're doing. It's not totally out there to be better than individuals in your department, not as humans, but as skill sets and experience. It's not that far. It's really one or two things away. But the massive difference between the energy and the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience that you put into it, the more you're able to focus and more able to adapt and be flexible and to do those different things, your results are going to just be astronomically different. So, as I sum it up, if you want to go from good to great, do a little bit, start doing more. If you want to go from great to outstanding, all you got to do is switch one or two things, and then the results that you get are going to blow out of the park. Just like everyone remembers first place and no one remembers second place. They beat each other. First place beats the other individual by like half seconds, or like minuscule amounts of seconds. But it's those minuscule amounts of seconds. I don't even know if that's the right phrase. Minuscule amount of seconds that makes the difference between first place and their outstanding results, and then second place, the silver medal, getting good results.
Love that. Yeah, nobody remembers what Buzz Aldrin said when he stepped on the moon as the second person. He achieved something amazing and incredible, but that's not remembered. And again, I don't want to say that he is not indispensable in what he did and his job there. But what he said is right. It's taking that little bit of a step to be outside the box. And Picasso famously said that you need to learn all the rules so you know when to break them. And he went on to break all the rules and become one of, if not the most famous, if not most important painters in the 20th century. So it's that learning first, learn so you're good at it. Take that extra effort to know your job and be good at your job, but then learn how to expand a little bit beyond that. And that expansion beyond the minimum is what makes people indispensable and makes them that linchpin that Seth Godin talks about. So I want to thank everyone for listening today. Hopefully you've gained some from this. I know that regardless of how much practice or study I put in before this podcast, I sit down with William and suddenly I get all these great ideas that he shares and expands it even more. So hopefully if you've read the book, this has helped you expand some of your ideas on it. If you haven't read the book, The Linchpin by Seth Godin, I encourage you to pick up a copy, read through it. Just some great information and a new way of looking at a lot of things that we might think we already know. So again, thank you for joining us on this episode of Champion Reads. Once again, we're brought to you by Champion Circle, the networking organization based upon the principles of the mastermind methodology as outlined through Napoleon Hill in his seminal book, Think and Grow Rich, which you also really, really need to go pick up a copy and read if you haven't yet, or to reread it now. Again, thank you to my co-host, co-producer, Mr. William Blake. And we encourage you to follow us. And if you've learned something today, hit that little like and subscribe button. It should be just over here if you're on the video. You will be rewarded with, I believe, a little ding sound, which always makes life a little bit better, as well as a chance to see more of our videos and join us as we discuss the best books and the principles and application to those in our lives. You can follow us also at mychampioncircle.com. If you'd like to reach out to us with questions, comments, desires about this podcast, you can reach us at info@mychampioncircle.com. Having said that, have a wonderful week. Be sure to follow us on all your major podcast channels, and we look forward to hearing you or from you for our next episode. Thank you.